Welcome, everyone. I'm Kristen Zohn, Curator of Collections and Exhibitions at the Lauren Rogers Museum of Art. I'm coming to you live from my home, and here today I have Lauren Cardenas, who is with the University of Mississippi and is part of our exhibition, Collections Interventions, Mississippi Collegiate Art Faculty Invitational, which opened up on March 17th, right before the shelter-in-place thing came through, and so we had to shut down the museum. So we are bringing you conversations with artists whose work is in the exhibition via video. So thanks so much for being with us today, Lauren.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors for the exhibition, Community Bank and Sanderson's Farms. Thank you very much to our sponsors. We couldn't have exhibitions without them. So Lauren, if you would give us a little bit of background, biography of yourself, how, where you were born, where you grew up, and how you became an artist.
Of course. So I grew up in Texas, East Texas, Longview, and I went to school in Texas. I went to Southwestern University. I have a BA in studio art. I actually started out as a painter. But took my first printmaking class my sophomore year of college, and that's kind of when I fell in love with printmaking. I worked with many different artists in different print shops across the United States. After undergrad, I went to the Tamarind Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I was there for about a year, learning about the how and the why of lithography. And then after that, I ended up moving to Kansas City and took like a gap year in between grad school and Tamarind, and I kind of worked there. And I ended up getting my MFA from Washington University in St. Louis. After that, I worked as a commercial letterpress printer at the Firecracker Press. And I did that for about 2 years. And then I became the shop manager at Washington University. So I went back to my alma mater. And I did that for about 2 years. There seems to be a trend. And then during that time, when I was in St. Louis, I had started a art and literary magazine called Pie Crust with a friend of mine. So that ran for about 4 years. And then I was a part of one of the founders and on the steering committee for 4 years, the St. Louis Small Press Expo. And then I also co-founded a project space called Museum Blue in St. Louis with 3 other artists, Mike Bailey, Gina Graffos, and Carly Trosclair. And then, so these are kind of all the things that I did while I was in St. Louis. And after about 6 or 7 years, I decided to leave, and I took on this, I was awarded this fellowship in Reno, Nevada. That's part of the Redfield Fellow that was at the University of Nevada, Reno. And I was there for 2 years. It was just a 2-year appointment. So I was teaching, but I was also the artist in residence at the Black Rock Press. And there I actually, in the second year of my time there, I collaborated with a Chicano poet and a professor in cultural studies and the gender, race, and identity program, Daniel Enrique Perez. So he was a poet, and then a St. Louis DJ, David Kirkland, and we created this project called Things You See in the Dark, which was published by the Black Rock Press. And so I did all of this before I got to the University of Mississippi. So I started there in August 2018. And between August 2018 and I guess 2014, that's when I was like teaching. So I was kind of adjunct teaching, but also doing kind of studio management. And I really kind of fell in love with teaching. I knew I always wanted to teach. I just didn't know when I was going to be ready to teach. And then I was in Nevada, and I was kind of hunting for jobs, and the University of Mississippi was the right fit. So
it seems like you've been involved with images and words throughout your printmaking career, and that maybe teaching in words was a good fit for your interests aesthetically, also visually.
Yeah. So between like images and words, and I also teach a lot of, I taught a lot of book arts classes. So when I was at UNR, I taught book arts, the intermediate courses, and then a graduate course. At the University of Mississippi, I also teach book art. So I teach from intro to all the way to graduate courses. And while I was in grad school, that's kind of when I was introduced to artist books and letterpress printing, and really kind of started to dive into that world.
So we met when I came to do a studio visit with you at the University of Mississippi when I was preparing the Collections Interventions exhibition. And so that exhibition asks college and university professors from around the state to look at our collection and to choose a work or works that can speak to you as an artist, and then to create an artwork in response to that. So we met during the studio visit, and then you came to a day that we had for all of the artists to kind of meet each other from all around the state, and then also to see the museum's collection in person. And you chose this John Alexander piece, Eye of the Storm. Do you want to tell us why you chose that one?
Yeah, of course. So during that tour, it was really interesting to kind of like see the collection and see from the silver to the baskets, and then this like early European art. But then when we kind of went to this kind of contemporary wing, I don't know, this John Alexander, I mean, it's large in scale, and it just kind of like stood out. There was so like between the atmosphere and the blue, but then also this like movement. It just seemed like it seemed more turbulent. And then I remember like staring at it, and I'm pretty sure that there's not, but it looks like there are these like behind these stalks of like ferns and other fauna or flora. It seems like there's like a set of eyes like just peering through and like staring at you.
There are. I've got the cursor over them right now. That at least that set, if not more. This is a Katrina storm inspired piece by John Alexander, who's a Gulf Coast artist. So yeah, there are definitely eyeballs staring at you from behind the flora.
And like it was just really like captivating. And it had so much of this energy of just like turbulence and disturbance, but also this sense of calm with like the blue, like it is the calm before the storm. And so that's kind of what drew me into that particular painting. And then I kind of researched a little bit more about John Alexander and like his other works that are a little bit more political, or I wouldn't say a little bit more, are much more political than the flora. But like his being situated, like being from the South, moving up to New York, and kind of having this relationship with the South resonated with me because I grew up in East Texas. I didn't live there for 10 years, and then I was returning to the South. So it was this this kind of grappling with this returning home, and like kind of reintroducing myself to this environment.
Great. And so now I'm going to show your piece that is inspired, called Green Curtain. Can you walk us through not only the content of it, but also the process of the actual technical art aspect?
Sure. So the Green Curtain is an abstract image of kudzu. And like that was one of the things, like moving from Nevada to Mississippi and seeing the landscape transform over close to 3,000 miles was like insane. and like watching, like as I drove in to like see the lush kudzu just kind of taking over areas, but also like it was one of those, it's like this invasive species that like takes over and like really kind of and strangulates like whatever it comes in contact with, but also has this like sumptuous, like beautiful, luscious green beauty to it. And so, so I created this piece. They're photolithographs. And what I actually did was, so photolithography, it's an aluminum plate lithography process, and the plate is coated with photo emulsion. And then you expose films to it. So you're blocking out the light, similar to silkscreen. So you're exposing that to UV light, and then you're washing that with developer. So we have like a developer that is part lye, part soda ash. So it's a mixture of that, and that's what's developing and removing the emulsion that was exposed to light but not blocked out by the imagery. And for this particular piece, so it's 2 colors, 2 plates, I ended up trying something. So I'm kind of I enjoy the making prints through haphazard ways. So I know how to do them traditionally, but I really wanted to experiment with this process. So I cut down pieces of kudzu and I actually just exposed that directly onto the plate. So the plate was really unstable, and there were moments where like it started to want to kind of delete. So on the right hand panel, where there are moments where you can kind of like not see so much of the imagery, so it's kind of like fading out, and that's from not getting enough contact, also the emulsion kind of taking that away. So I really like this watery effect that I was getting, and I ended up making 2 plates, and so one is a lot more solid, and then I printed them in a really transparent green ink, and it's printed on kitikata paper, which is a Japanese paper that's really, really thin, and kind of takes to all the imperfections. And so, so I printed, there were 2 plates, and then one of the plates I actually printed twice. So I just kind of turned it and then changed the colors. And then I wasn't satisfied with the finished product of just like the direct printing, and I wanted to kind of have this industrial aspect to it. So I ended up taking steel bars, and I rusted them on purpose. And so I laid those down and sandwiched them between the sheets. And so that's the Sierra, the burnt sienna imagery that's in there. And so that is all kind of happenstance. Like I'm not 100% sure of like how that rust print is going to take, how much rust is going to develop. So like there are areas that are a lot more dense. So like on the left-hand panel where a lot more of the rust like transferred at the bottom. And so, but I really did kind of like, it felt more finished. And it had that kind of sensation of like this man-made coming and kind of colliding with this, with nature.
I also kind of get the feeling too that that now that I know that they're bars, that's very industrial, but they also feel like a thicket of trees in the forest.
Yeah.
You know, tree limbs too. So it's industrial and natural at the same time.
Yeah. And then like just thinking about like the kudzu and like creating this wall and kind of like encompassing like it's like this is encompassing of the South. So that's kind of where I came.
The arts magazine in Birmingham, Alabama is called Kudzu because it covers It covers the South like kudzu.
Oh.
So I wanted to show them side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any kind of compositional or formal aspects that are in parallel, or is that just by happenstance?
I think it is by happenstance. There was a period where like I was going to attempt to like incorporate aspects of the blue, and I had made a couple of other prints, and like I thought about embroidering on top, but it just didn't seem intentional. It seemed a little, it seemed like too forced. And so when looking at the John Alexander piece, I was really just looking at color and trying to figure out those kind of similarities of the different greens, from the lightest green to like the darkest ones. And so that's kind of where I feel like most of the similarities would have come in.
And I want to show people too, this is the installation, so you can see the scale and how large the Alexander is. It looks beautiful next to your piece in the exhibition. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful explanation. We have a wall panel that explains part of that, but it's not nearly as in-depth as you've just gone into, so thanks so much. Can you tell us a little bit about what the experience working with the museum was? You've talked a little bit about how this project lent itself to experimentation. Is there anything else that you'll take away from the project?
Yeah, I mean, it was really great, especially the tour, like being able to kind of tour the collection with the curator, and like go and see the collection in the back. Like that was really, really kind of a treat, and be able to ask questions. And so I always really enjoy that aspect of being able to have that conversation with the curator and kind of talk about the vision of whether it be the show or talk about the collection. So
wonderful. Well, I certainly enjoyed working with you, and I will look forward to working with you in the future again. Thank you so much, and thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
Have a great week.
You too.